All right, perfect. Well, good morning, everybody. Hope you all had a great week so far. We're halfway into the fall semester, so perfect time to kind of, group together, join a session, do something a little bit new. And today we have the great honor to invite Dr. Noel Criscione and Dr. Danielle Leung, all the way from Hong Kong, to join us and share with us their passion and among many hats they wear, right? Among all the responsibility they have developing students, one thing they're passionate and they have a lot of experience and knowledge to share with others is working with undergraduate students on developing their research skills. From both their background, they have a lot of work done with the industry as well as on the academia side. So today we're gonna hear their side of the experience, their story, probably some successful cases for working with undergraduate students, how that look like. I know in the chat, we already have some introduction going on, but if you're just coming in, put your name. Are you a faculty or a student? What is something that you want to take away from here so we can make sure Noel and Daniel address that throughout the presentation. Also, feel free to ask any questions. This session is recorded and we'll post it on NENA Cray website later on. Well, Noel, carry it away. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. So in true academic fashion, we are going to get started. I'm just going to share my screen with you all. And thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. So Forrest is right. I have an absolute passion to engage with students on research. And I would say if I just focus on the last 2 years, I've had the amazing opportunity to work with about 10 to 15 students, publish 10 student articles, have 2 of the students present at Eta Sigma Delta, which is the Honor Society Symposium that is linked to iCRE, and then also have had an opportunity to have students present with me at business management conferences. And what I am hoping to share with you is a little bit about, from a faculty perspective, or even if you are a PhD candidate, how can we start to position research in a different way for students? And then I'll pass it to my colleague who's really going to focus based on his experiences, from a faculty advisor perspective. So when I first started, I went into one of my classes and I said, hey, who likes to do research? And you could hear a pin drop. And I think that the way, at least in the United States, that we more or less introduce students to research is we scare them versus inspire and empower them. And one of the biggest things that I have found is that we have to break down the importance of research really simply. And that has been one of the things that has really allowed me to find students that really do have that spark and that passion for research, but they might just be a little hesitant based on past experiences. And I at least wanted to share, this is some of the ideas and the ways that I convey research to my students, which is, for me, I want to highlight asking the right questions. And I don't know how many of you, if I can just maybe see the show of hands, how many of you love to ask questions? Okay, so Janine, I know you ask questions. So I think maybe some of you are just being shy here, and I can't see everyone, but I find that, that inquisitive nature that a lot of people have really has been the gateway. And, again, thinking critically, associating that with their ability to really be successful inside the industry spaces has been really good. But another thing for me that has really been important, and I do work at a liberal arts institution, is that the ability to use research to find connections and synergies that you didn't know existed. And when I've positioned it that way, through the ability for us to synthesize multiple sources of information to really understand a topic, we start to see that our world that we thought was really, really small becomes really, really big. And I always like to position it as well as, let's go adapt and explore. And, it's really about thinking about all of those things that we're really curious about and how do we want to dig deeper into those. And even if you're not the most proficient writer, because even here amongst friends, We all have different writing styles. For some of us, English isn't our primary language, depending upon the journals we're looking to. We can't let those be barriers, whether it's for us as faculty or our students. And I think if we can relieve some of those scary things on the front end, that we're able to create a more enjoyable ride in research. So I wanted to at least highlight some of the ways that we can start to break down the process of research a little more simply. And even though for some of you online, and maybe we can just do again like a show of hands, or use a symbol in there, how many of you are currently actively engaging in research on a regular basis? Okay, great. So maybe for some of us, we don't need to hear this. I always need constant reminders, because I find that the more experience we have in research, we don't necessarily always follow the process that might be easiest to get people that aren't engaged in research every day started. And why I say that is, even for me, I'm working on a research project right now. And maybe some of you on here are going to say, oh, why is she doing it that way? But guess what? I kind of like to look through my data before I come up with my research questions. I like to do all my data analysis before I start developing my lists of, for my literature review. And that's just because I have so much experience within that particular subject, that I know some of that core background, I know some of the seminal work. So I find that because some of us have so much experience and we're so engaged, that we forget how to drill it down a little more simply for our students, which also becomes a barrier. And how many of you remember Charlie Brown, the TV show? Anybody know that as a point of reference? So if you're not familiar, there was a teacher in the classroom in Charlie Brown, and every time the students would talk, what they heard the teacher sound like was wah, 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 wah. So it doesn't translate. So this is what I found has helped in breaking it down very simply. I'm more than happy to share this with you. I've also developed a 15-week timeline as to all of the research steps that I give out to my students at the beginning of the semester if they want to engage in research with me, as well as step-by-steps, even how to write a 2-page abstract, which is something that is required for the Eta Sigma Delta. And it has really helped them to kind of get their hands around ideas, and it breaks it up into little steps. So, first and foremost is formulating that research question. And it's really not focused for me as much when I start that it's well crafted, that they can at least start to articulate their ideas. And in academics, I have found that some of us might be a little scared of AI. Well, I love AI, and it's secretly becoming my best friend, because we can bicker back and forth to see who's smarter. And it really helps to even not only just generate ideas, which, we have to be careful. We are knowledge producers here, and there's some other tricky things. But as students are starting off, I believe it's okay to ask different questions to see some of the outputs. But then for me, there's a hard line when they have to stop. And I think the more that we can integrate in tools that they're used to and comfortable with, and then show them how to progress, again, it starts to relieve some of those fears. So, formulating that research question, and then start to have them just do some basic inquiry as to, okay, you have this idea. So I have a student right now that wants to do research on nonprofits and the impact that tourism has on the nonprofits' engagement in the community. So I said, that's really great idea. I said, but that's really, really broad. So how do we start to narrow that down? So I always like to have students start conducting some background research on just their main topic, so they can then see that their topic has 200,000 peer-reviewed journal articles that come up in a database. And how do they start to use some of those very easy sorting features and topic features to start to narrow it down? Because again, if we go in, or at least I have found, if we go in and we start really, really big, and really start to give, I'm going to say, tough feedback, it completely disengages students in the process. And when I first started this, I noticed that when I would give them feedback and I would always do track changes, that 98% of their paper was red. And I was like, oh, okay, how do I change that strategy to help them, gradually progress, to get where we need to be, at least for the student work? So continuing on, I break it down very simply into collecting and analyzing the data. For many of us in the work that I'm doing, because I do seek to publish, is that it's a lot of IRB applications. So I've created a lot of templates, again, more than willing to share that with anybody that wants to engage with students. But to also be aware, and again, there might be different rules at your institutions, but if it's work engaged with students and it's only going to go for something like Eta Sigma Delta, is not going beyond that or not going beyond the classroom, you can do it under the guidance of the faculty member without IRB, although I always highly recommend IRB just to protect yourself, protect the institution, but again, it's being prepared with those timelines, and making sure that we can, collect the data. I always like to at least start with, an alpha test, particularly of surveys, but if we decide to get IRB, because it gives students insight to, oh, okay, I thought I was going to get a variety of different responses when I asked that question. And you know what? I got a yes or a no. So even starting to get them to see and realize that the construction of a question on a survey can really produce a different result, whether you intended it to be a closed-ended question or an open-ended question. And then not to be afraid of using secondary resources and data. I mean, we're all so connected, at ICRE level, we have different reports and partnerships where secondary data is available. And really thinking about, tapping into your alumni offices. I just got an amazing data set from our alumni offices. I'm working on 3 projects right now from our student club development office, looking at organic diversity, looking at the correlation between student leaders and the demographic composition of students in those clubs, like really exciting stuff. And all of the data is at my fingertips. So don't be afraid to look at your institution for these secondary data sets for students to play with, because even though it might be, oh, well, that's not what I really want to focus on, it might be some really great opportunities to introduce students. And there's that worry of collecting data and having the time to do it. Completely brings that down. And then even for synthesizing information, what I have always finds works best is I tell students to take it easy, 2 articles at a time, and then almost do like a compare contrast paper. And I found that that was their easiest way for them to start breaking it down. And then I'm like, okay, so now you compare it and contrast. I'm like, so let's critically evaluate that. What are the gaps that we see? And they get that with the next 2. And then as they keep doing, they kind of stack on and build on. And as I do that, I give more and more feedback on their writing, because I don't know about you all, but I don't know that COVID has really helped students improve their writing with all that time off, and some of, I want to say, take it easy on them, that maybe some of us at our institutions have been asked to do a little bit. So, on top of research, there's our role in guiding students to write academically in many cases. And that's where I would also encourage you, if you haven't thought about it. And again, this is going to be based on your institutional requirements. I come from an AACSB accredited institution. So if I don't publish in an approved journal, it doesn't count for anything for me. So there are a lot of journals on the hospitality and tourism side that are practitioner journals. And that means that we can do industry commentary articles with our students, that at least count for me in an accredited institution. There are a couple of journals that have both practitioner type of articles and industry articles, similar to, if you're familiar with the ICRE research reports, but these are in Cabell's, Journalytics ranking, Australian Dean's List ones. You just have to watch out in case you look at editorial pieces. They're not always double-blind reviews. So that would be the caution, but I always go into a class knowing the outlet, because then it helps me to define what that structure is and how students are going to go through these simple steps. The last, and then I want to give some time to pass it to my counterpart, and then I can fill in pieces as well, is that, for me, the drawing conclusion and the presenting the findings are always the most fun. And I say that because I always say, and my dissertation advisor years and years ago, this has never left me, is she would always say to me, so what? And I got to tell you, I was so offended so often during my dissertation process, as every time I would say something, she's like, well, so what? But guess what? I find I do that to everyone now. And I'm like, oh, that's so what? So what? So, for me, the so what is always in the presentation for me because it's how we bring it to life. How do we get people really stoked about the work that we're doing? And for me, it's honing in on the fact that the impact of what we're doing in itself has impact. But then there's all of these skills that we really don't highlight a lot. And they're so prevalent and needed in our industry is that, students get an opportunity to really perfect their ability to critically evaluate information, build their credibility in a space. Now, I'm kind of a jack of all trades. And what I mean by that is whatever I'm into right now, my research trends follow. And I'm also on this path now where I'm like, oh man, I want to stay in one lane going forward. What is it that I truly want to build the most credibility in a space? And, I think sometimes that we can even help students with, as they're trying to figure out what they want to do when they grow up, pick research project that's within what you're interested in. So let's start at the highest level. Do you like hotels? Do you like food and beverage? Do you like tourism? And then we can narrow it down one level. Do you want to be a manager? Do you think being a manager is important? Do you believe in sustainable development? Or, are you on the ecotourism side? Or do you have no idea how sustainable tourism and ecotourism are the same or different? So, it's that inquisitive piece that we go through that I really think, we can connect to the skills that they get out of these projects and how they translate into the real world. And the last thing before I pass to my colleague that I want to highlight is we have an advisory board. They're all industry folks. Now, I'm not a career academic. I left industry in 2015. And I hate to tell you all this, but for those of us that have been in academia for a while, even if we're not right within this space, like, I came from industry again, is we do speak a foreign language to those that are active in the industry. And I've tried to bridge that by engaging with my advisory board and then getting their buy-in as to why it's important and asking them to fund my students' projects and asking them to support in sending one of my students. Daniel, I know we were just talking about funding being a challenge, right? Maybe there's an opportunity to say to one of the folks that either you have a great relationship with and say, here's why we value it. Why do you think it's of value? Or how can I get you to see the value in what we do? So that has been a really big help because some of my students recently, we just did an Atlantic City visitor perception study for the city. And we presented to a very distinguished board of city officials, government officials, all the CEOs of the major brands in our region. And I got to tell you, those executives were picking those students saying, I want that student to work for me. So the more we can make those connections, the more that I think we can get students jazzed. So I'll stop here because I want to give my counterpart some time. And I don't know, Forrest, if you want me to do any quick questions or answers or wait till Daniel's done, I'll let her dictate that.
Do we have any questions so far from the audience?
I don't know. I don't know if I did a great job for us, but it looks really jazzed because I'm super jazzed here, even talking about it. I think Daniel looks jazzed, so I think we definitely got to pass it to him.
Yeah, totally. Daniel, please take it.
All right, so good morning from your side, good evening from my side. So may I know if you can see my slide clearly? Okay, good. Thank you. So first of all, thank you, Forrest, for the invitation, and also thank you, Noel, for setting the stage. Now I feel the pressure because you showed that you're passionate in researching with your students. Now it's my time to share something from my side. So in fact, what I'm going to do today is to share how I reflect myself over the past 10 years, because when Forrest approached me to talk about this topic, I start looking at my cabinet and find out uh, who is the first students that I supervised before and what are the progress I make over the past 10 years. And I hope today I will share something useful for you. And before I start sharing my approach, so please allow me to give a very short introduction about myself to you. My name is Daniel. I'm an associate professor from School of Hotel and Tourism Management of the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. My areas of research interests are shown on the slide here. So most of the research are focusing on technology management, technology adoption. I'm also doing a lot of research on electronic marketing and particularly social media marketing. as we know that we are now highly relying on key influencers in sharing the good things about the hotel. So my PhD students and I are now collaborating and working on some papers about that. And regarding the teaching, I teach at bachelor level and also the master level. So at the bachelor level, I have been teaching technology strategies, which is a second year course for sophomore students for 6 years already. At the master level, I'm going to teach a new subject, which is called Innovation in Hospitality in the Digital Age. We have a new master program, which hopes to nurture more entrepreneurs who will work in the industry in the coming soon. I started supervising the first students 10 years ago, as I mentioned earlier. So right now I'm supervising bachelor students. I count that I coached 35 bachelor students so far. I also supervise 5 master students and also 3 doctoral students. When I prepare this one, I think I understand why Forrest approached me. Yeah, because over the past 10 years, I think I made some achievement. I hope I'm not over exaggerating my achievement. Since I joined this university, so I led quite a lot of students who make some great success in their career. And we also conducted some good research, which can be published in some top tier journals. In 2019, my bachelor student, Megan, and I co-authored a paper, which has been accepted and published in IJCHM, International Journal of Contemporary Hospitality Management. 2 years ago, I also conducted another paper with Christine, which is a bachelor student from Singapore. We work on a project about how the crisis-induced change in refund policy and how these influence consumers perceive the trust towards the brand, and also whether they are going to repurchase the product after the passage of COVID. Last year, I also worked with 2 students who successfully write the paper, who got the best paper award. And the paper we submitted is related to the impact of different festival stimuli on consumers' intention to purchase food and beverage product. So we contrasted the impact brought by cultural-based festivals, including Christmas, Easter, versus some consumer-based or maybe consumption-based festival, including Cyber Monday, Black Friday, to see whether they can create a similar impact on bringing consumers to buy the product. Now, you know that what I did before. So in fact, when I prepared this presentation, so I also thought about why I could coach some good students and how I can make my students happy when they research and collaborate with me. And every time that when I do something, I always start from the problems, because we as educators, I think our main role is to solve problems, not only for the industry, but also for myself and even for the students. So that's why before that I start coaching my very first students, I always talk to them and try to find out why you felt lost when you consider doing research. And over the past 10 years, I keep collecting these kind of comments, and I figure out that what I'm showing on the screen are some main reasons why students got lost when they do research with their professors. First, they feel that they are forced to do that because in the undergraduate curriculum, so they are asked to do the thesis. So that means they have no choice. They have to do that. So that's why they just do it in a very casual way, and they have very low motivation to do that. And this is the worst reason why they are lost. Second, that is not my topic. Some supervisors, they always push the topic to the students. So they have never thought about tailor making and personalizing the topic with the students. And because the topic was not selected by the students themselves, so that's why they lost their interest. They have many coursework. So when students conduct research, so they also need to manage other projects, other assessment, and they also need to complete other subjects. So that means they were not able to manage their time well. So that's why they are lost. They selectively lost their time and attention to the thesis, which is the third main reason why they got lost. I can't find the right method to achieve the objective. Now, this is another common problem that I find. Many students set a very ambitious objective, but when they go to the methodology part, so they lost because later on they found that they could not find the right method which can help them achieve the objective. So they need to go back to the objective, make some adjustment or amendment, and they need to do everything again. And because they feel frustrated, that's why they lost. This is a fourth reason why I found. I don't like my supervisor, and my supervisor are busy, and I can't find any help. So these are another two commonly found reasons that many students criticize when they write their evaluation report, and they even verbally tell the program leaders that I could not get a good grade from thesis or my research project because my supervisor don't like me. So now we know the problem. So after I recognize that, I think I may need to set up a systematic way to coach and manage my student. And fortunately, I successfully find my way to coach and research with my students. And today I'm going to share with you how I research and collaborated with undergraduate students using two things. First one, I summarize it in what we call the Chihuahua principle. So I'm going to explain what is the meaning of Chihuahua principle. And another one is how I set up my very first meeting with my students. Because in my opinion, setting the right stage with the students in the beginning will help you a lot when you continue to work with the students. So I call it the place approach. So I hope these two things will also be helpful for you to coach and manage your students in your upcoming projects. Okay, let's talk about Chihuahua approach. So the Chihuahua here, it stands for 6 things which I believe that they are highly important when you design the project with the students. I think the very first G that you may need to bear in mind is the ultimate goal that students may want to achieve by the completion of the study. Now, the reason why I mention that is because if you don't know why students do that, you may not be able to tailor-make a topic and do something that can help them achieve the best outcome. Going back to the previous slides I mentioned earlier, so last year when I submitted a paper with the students submitted to the symposium, one student decided to collaborate with us because she would like to pursue a master's degree afterwards. I told her that I can allow you to join our team, but you have to take the lead. Because if you know everything and if you do everything, I can lead you to become the lead author. And then this will also help you increase your chance to get admitted when you apply for the master program. So the students know that their effort will pay off. So that's why she paid a lot of attention, and she also paid a lot of time to complete the work. And finally, she got the Best Paper Award, and she successfully admitted to join one of the master program provided by University of Oxford. So these examples shows that if you know that the students' goal, you can find many good excuses and reasons to drive them to spend more time and effort in authoring the paper with you. So that's why I think the very first important G is to understand their goal. The I one, it refers to the interest. So I think understanding students' general interest, but not just about what they want to investigate, is another important thing that you may need to know. Regarding the same paper that I mentioned, which is about the festival stimuli. In fact, that we come up with this topic because the two students who worked with me told me that they don't understand why the hotels or many retail companies can successfully utilize Cyber Monday, Black Friday as a stimuli to trigger people to make the consumption. I said that it's because people consider that as a festival, as a way to show money to buy something. So then they challenge by asking, does it equivalence to normal festivals like Christmas, Easter? I have no idea about that. Let's find out together. So because we formulate a common interest on something, so that's why that we can tailor make a topic together, and they will keep injecting their synergy and also ideas, and then we can do good work. And another good example is the crisis-induced change in refund policy paper, because that student got a very unfortunate case because during COVID, she fly back to her hometown. And because the airline that didn't provide any refund for her, in the confirmation, it says that they will provide refund. But later on, because they want to protect their revenue, so that's why they denied the refund. She said that she was very upset. So that's why that she will no longer choose the same airline to make the consumption. I said, this is a good experience because I think it is very good to figure out whether other customers share the similar thought with you. So we utilize her personal experience, her personal case, and general interest to find out the topic. So what I want to highlight here is that if you know their goals, if you know their interests, you can easily come up with something that the students would like to work with you together. So that's why G and I put it in the beginning, because these are something you may need to formulate in the beginning phase of the whole research process. And then after you know their goal and also interest, and then next that you may need to start collaborating with them. And in the beginning phase of this collaboration, I think you may need to pay some effort and you may need to get involved into that, because many students may not have a lot of research knowledge like what we do. So that's why the what here, I would say that you may need to curate a what question, the preliminary research topic with them. Because if students got lost at this stage, you will lose them forever. So that's why after understanding the goal and interest, you may need to narrow down to the topic with them. So that means they know that I may need to put my eyesight in this spot. These are the spots that I may need to focus on. And will not go to other areas and I would lose my track. So that means finding the target, understanding what they may need to investigate is a third thing that you may need to do. So it stands for the third symbol, which is W here. But it doesn't mean that students don't need to do anything. So after you come up with So after you come up with the preliminary topic, and then next, what you may need to do is to let students to amplify that what we discussed together, because this is the student work. This is not your work. So that's why you may need to ask the students to further investigate and amplify the topic, because you have already provided something that they can use. So it is now their responsibility to further optimize the topic. And when they optimize the topic, I always say that you need to follow what we call the Paul principle. The Paul
And it's
principle
Friday.
here. Sorry. So for the Paul principle here, the first P, it stands for it must be practical. So I fully agree with what Noel said earlier. If we do something very theoretical, it doesn't help, because students may finally go to the industry. So they may need to do something that would benefit the society and benefit the industry. So that's why the topic itself must provide some practical implication. And they also need to assure that the objective has to be an achievable one, because if you set very ambitious one, and if you find out that you cannot collect any data to achieve the objective, it doesn't make sense to spend time to do that. So make sure you can get the data, you can find the right method to achieve that. Third one is make sure the topic is under research. So that means you need to do sufficient background research and make sure that topic has never been investigated in previous research. So that's why what we call the Paul one, the third one, is stand for under research. And make sure you like the topic, because if you don't like the topic, you won't have any interest and you won't have any attention to that. So that's why you may need to strictly follow this Paul principle when you assess and when you amplify the topic. Okay, so these are the fourth one. And then next, after you have everything ready and students set the stage and they know what they may need to investigate, I think that the second W in this case is stand for when. So for the when is they may need to know when they may need to submit the work to you, because you cannot assume that students will take the responsibility. Please bear with me. Maybe you think that I spoil the students, but I have to admit that students in this generation, they need help. They need when they may need to submit something. You need to give them milestone. You need to give them the deadlines. So that's why when I collaborate with students, I will clearly tell them, please come up with the write-up plan by yourself. I will fine-tune it together with you. So fine-tune it, that means I may also need to consider the class timetable and also their personal life. I don't want them to just focus on research. They also have their personal lives. They also have their friends. So you should not just fully concentrate on research and also academic life. So these are the W, the second W here. Last one, before let them start the writing. Make sure you provide enough access. So the access here, it stands for all the essential resources that they may need to acquire. I have met a lot of students who said that I cannot do that because I could not find the literature. I cannot find the sample thesis or sample templates that I may need to, that I can use for writing my thesis. I cannot find the right software to analyze the data, and I cannot find you. Please don't give them any excuse to not doing something with you. So make sure they can access to all the essential resources, including all the 4 points here. Okay, so these are what I call that the Chihuahua approach: goal, interest, what, amplify, when, and also assess. To me, writing research is similar to creating a product. So if you want students to create a good product, I think the first two things is highly needed, because you empathize, you know that the students' wants and also needs. And then in the second stage, you come up with the preliminary idea and you let them amplify. So you provide very strong foundation for them to come up with new ideas. And before they build up the very first things, the prototype, so you set up the right writing plan and also give them essential resources, which will effectively help them create a prototype. So that's why I would say that writing research is equivalent to creating a new product, thinking about how a new product may look like. So if you go through this design thinking approach, you will also come up with something that you may need to talk to students and you may need students to do that. Okay. I still have 4 more minutes, so I will just quickly go through this one. After knowing the Chihuahua principles, I will also share how I set the very first meeting with my students. To me, writing is not that difficult because if students know what they may need to write, they can easily write it. So that's why in one semester, when students are asked to come up with a paper, I will spend 4 or maybe 6 weeks to plan everything with them. Because once they know everything they may need to write, they just easily put the things in the right place. So that's why planning is more important to writing, in my opinion. And as I mentioned earlier, so I think the very first meeting that you will have with the students plays a very important role because this is the right chance for you to show your expertise. Let the students know that they need to respect to you. So that's why setting the right first meeting is so important. So for the place approach I use, the very first P is ask students to prepare everything by themselves. So the way I do that, I ask students to prepare at least 2 research ideas before having the very first meeting, because I want them to bear some responsibility. I don't want them to feel that this is your supervisor's role to do everything. I need to remind them this is your thesis, this is not your research project, but not mine one. So that's why you also need to contribute as well. So that means ask students to prepare something before meeting you. Second one, listen. Because many times we don't listen to students said and then we just keep adding our comment. Students think that you're not a patient and good supervisor. So that's why your teaching evaluation also get affected. So in order to avoid making this happen, so I highly recommend you to listen to what the students propose first without giving any comments, because this will also show that how you mutually respect with each other. So when you close your mouth, listen to them. When you say or when you give comment to them, they should also listen and stay quiet. So this is what we call that, how we learn from each other. And then after you listen everything, make sure you appraise what they did, because asking an undergraduate students to talk to a assistant professor, associate professor, or a full professor is a very stressful task. So what I do is I always appraise students' time, effort, and courage in defending everything they propose. So once they know that the thing I contribute can help me get some recognition, so they will continue doing that. So make yourself as a likable person is another reason why I do that, because I also want my teaching evaluation to get a positive scores rather than a negative score. So that's why I think giving enough appraisal is also very important. C here, it stands for clarify. So don't criticize everything, because students may not have equal amounts of knowledge than what you do. So that's why your role is to clarify whether you misinterpret something. If there's anything unclear, please guide them to think about how they should change the direction from 1 to 2 or from A to B. This is what we call advisor. To me, a supervisor is not the right term. Our role is to advise students to make the change. It is still their responsibility to make the final decision. Okay, so that's why that you need to show your expertise by giving a constructive criticism and help them think critically and creatively. That is another important role when you have the first meeting with the students. Last but not least, give them empowerment. Empower them to make the final decision, because this is their work. Your role is to advise the right direction. If they insist that their way or their original approach is still a better one, why not? Let them fail and let them make some mistakes, because students can also learn from the mistakes they make, which is also a part of the learning process. But still, you need to firstly empower students to make the decision first, and also let them gain the sense of ownership. This is your job. This is not my job. So that's why if you agreed to go for your approach, then you may need to bear the responsibility. Okay, so these are the approach I use. I use the Chihuahua principle and also the place approach to supervise and coach my students over the past 10 years. So I hope the approach and also all the personal experience I had are helpful to you. Now I'll pass back to Forrest and Noel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you both. That was great. I learned a lot. I was taking a lot of crazy notes over here, and I hope other people in the session benefit from it too. Now we're open to questions.
So Forrest, while everyone is just, pontificating on all the amazing questions that they're going to potentially ask here, and so Tim knows I'm right on that one. Danielle, I want to be one of your research students, and I'm impressed because I think that giving my students, having them responsible for everything, at first I was like, man, I'm so jealous of your student population right now. But I absolutely love the models that you shared today. And like Forrest said, I got a lot out of that because, I kind of, as I'm working with students and trying to elevate them, particularly the ones that might be interested in grad school or even continuing on from there, I think you provided a lot of really amazing ideas. So thank you for that. And Mary, yes, I will send a couple of resources, including the 15-week, the presentation, because I have a couple of strategies in my presentation for you all as to how to get students to kind of build and even a group activity around how to get them to develop research questions that you all might find helpful. And I think really does align very well to a lot of what Daniel shared. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Noel. Thank you for the positive words. And I also learned a lot from you. Now, you make me remember that students may also need this kind of overview that before start thinking about their topic as well. So probably in the next rounds of coaching and supervision, so I may also need to give it this kind of tutorial for students so that they understand the structure about that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Any questions from the audience?
I have one. I'm
Go
Tim
ahead.
Brad. I'm from the Northwestern State University in Louisiana. And so my question would be, when do you start to introduce research on the undergraduate level? Is it sort of in the sophomore year, the junior year? Do you have any courses surrounding undergraduate research in your programs to get students to be more thinking about research sort of moving forward in their academic career?
So Tim, I can at least start with you. So initially when even the Eta Sigma Delta Symposium came around, and Donna Albano chairs that, right? So that's from our university. And she looked at me, she's like, Noel, we need students. And I go, okay, all right. So how are we going to do this? So we have a capstone course. That was the first time that I started to introduce research. And we have a case analysis major group project in there that they work on all semester. So I decided to give an alternative assignment. I said, you could do the group project or you can engage one-on-one with me in research. And if so, here's what you're going to be in for. And my first year, I had 10 students in that class. They were all seniors. And they're like, we want to do research with you. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I will tell you, the first time I did this, I was completely overwhelmed working on what turned out to be 8 projects. All 8 projects came to completion, won best paper in a journal. So I was like, wow, okay, so how do I structure this so I can actually live and have a personal life as well? So we started to offer a research methods class that we do once every 3rd semester. So we had an opportunity to run that last semester, and now this semester, just because of our enrollment, it doesn't always allow us to do that. I continue to offer it as an alternative assignment in my policy class, but I narrow it down. So I only will take a max of 5 students. And then I say, we'll meet in a group. I ask them to submit a writing sample. And then I encourage them that if there's another opportunity that maybe they can submit an independent study and we can do it individually, because I don't want to discourage them from not doing it. So those are kind of the workarounds that we have had to try to still do that. And then we've also offered independent study as well.
All right, from my side, because we are running a 4-year program, so in the 3rd year of their studies, all students have to take a kind of research method class, which is called analyzing and interpreting research. But in the final year of their study, so they can choose to write on a thesis, or they can choose to work as a team and go for the capstone project. So if they go for the thesis one, we have a thesis coordinator who will provide them with foundational knowledge as a kind of reminder because they have already learned that from that research method class. But we will also utilize that chance to ask students to submit the proposal because the proposal will help the coordinator to assign the right supervisors for them and provide enough coaching because we need to match researchers, faculty members, areas of research interest with what the students may want to investigate. So that's why we ask students to narrow down to a rather specific topic. If they go for a very broad one, it's very likely that we will come up with a mismatch between this. Yeah, so I hope I answered your question, Tim. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to add just one thing. I actually had one success case with undergraduate student in Hong Kong, and it was actually a group of students from their very first year. I think it doesn't have to be any specific year, but I think taking a chance to identify certain opportunities and adding that learning experience to their at least 4 year of academic life, right? So they're not just taking courses, they also see a different side of learning. Just spur some interest. It doesn't have to be they are going to for a graduate program. So it was a group of students. They were interested in, food deliveries. They did over 100 sample among their students and friends. Of course, there's a lot of flaws and limitations from the entire approach, but it was usable data. It was a great idea, and they were able to attend the youth conference at APAC Cray. So there was also those opportunities. Of course, the school were financially supporting them as well. So I felt like, when you step upon certain opportunities, and this is why this session is so great for this time, right? There's a lot of conference coming up, a lot of deadlines come up. There's so many opportunities to really engage a new group of people into this part of the academic life that we experience every day. So yeah. So I think there's a lot of opportunities around just outside, the thesis, the requirement, the courses.
Forrest, if I may, hearing you say that, one of my students that presented at Eta Sigma Delta last year is working on a research project again this year. And even the amount of personal development in that student. So she was a sophomore when she presented, going into, junior year. And that transformation alone, like even from doing that one study to this one, it really is, a substantial. And I think that for those that are on here, whether it happens at the Eta Sigma Delta level or at least within NENA, Forrest and I, have the same passion and we want to see more students engage in research. So we're trying to come up with ideas that, maybe they can't all happen this year, but as we go forward, setting up, certain practices or conference planning details around our students to encourage them and get them excited, even if it's in a quick rapid research session and they're just bringing an idea and let's talk with experts in that area to get them to see that it's okay not to have every answer, but I think, Daniel, you focus on something that's really important. If somebody doesn't like their subject, and that's why I never give a subject, because my students are like, oh, well, what do you want us to research? I'm like, nope, not doing that, because it'll be like pulling teeth. What are you jazzed about? I can tell you if I can do it with you or I can't do it with you. And sometimes maybe I'm, curious about it. So I'm like, okay, that's not my area of expertise, but let's try it. Let's see what happens. So, I look forward to seeing a lot more, and I would love to see some cross-university collaboration with students. How cool would it be if we had students, just an example, from Hong Kong, Polytechnic, and Stockton that get together once a month to just talk about, ideas, or, their research projects, or, Tim from down in Louisiana. Like, I think that would be so cool to see, and what a student experience. So I'm just putting that to the universe as an idea that's on my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about bringing experience to customers, right? So why don't we do the same thing for our own students and really enrich their learning experience? Yeah, I like a lot of what you said here. Any questions? Other questions from the audience? If not, we'll share this recording on the website, of course. And Noel and Daniel is generally to agree to share their PowerPoint as well. I also want to take a quick minute to promote our upcoming Rise and Grind session, the November edition. We have another great, passionate researcher that really focuses on qualitative research, Dr. Kai-Shang Lee from University of Tennessee, Knoxville. He's gonna come in and talk about, confronting the dangerous misconception, right? We talk a lot about, really thinking research as this impossible task, but really, solve that misconception. So we're gonna continue that line of the idea and really dive into the qualitative research world. Well, thank you everybody for joining today. We look forward to see you in November. And thank you so much, Daniel, for zooming in all the way from Hong Kong.
Thank you very much, Forrest, and thank you, Noel. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, Daniel, next time we present together, I'm coming to your office, so I'm just warning you.
All right.
So Forrest, you better figure out how to make that work, or Mary, you better figure out how to make that work for us at our NENA level, please.
Yes, I'm writing your papers now.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank you,
Travel.
everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.